Hello there guys, Daniel Childs here, Wednesday the 3rd of July 2024, and we have got some more Chelsea news to get through. Obviously yesterday, if you haven't checked out the show, we mainly covered the signing of Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall from Leicester, why Chelsea have signed him, how he fits in, but there's a little bit more on that. And I think kind of the interesting thing to speak about today is a broader conversation over specifically what Enzo Maresca is wanting to do with this Chelsea squad, the sort of players that could be featuring, might not have a future under him, and how the team is going to look in and out of possession. And then also we will look at some of those key decisions that he's likely to make over personnel. And lastly, Riccardo Calafiori, the Bologna centre-back / left-back who's been linked to Chelsea for quite a while now, and obviously it seems like it's going to be a race between Chelsea and Arsenal for his signature, so we'll get into that as well. If you are new around here, please hit the like button, please subscribe, free to do, really helps the show out. Give me your comments down below, get engaged with the community, and thank you once again if you are listening via the podcast feed, because I know many of you do listen through the podcast, so I thank you for all your support on that as well. But let's get into it. So Matt Law, shortly after the signing had been announced by Dewsbury-Hall, I'd already made my show reacting to the signing, released this kind of big piece about how Enzo Maresca, what his plan is going to be for Chelsea, and it's referred to as Chelsea's Swiss Army knife plan under Enzo Maresca, and kind of him wanting two top players for each position, and needs what is referred to as Swiss Army knife players who can play in different roles and systems. The Italians' philosophy revolves around total ball domination, with inverted fullbacks, overloads, and draining the opposition physically and mentally. If an opponent defends with 4, Maresca's team attacks with 5. And then we'll go into kind of a broader conversation in terms of some of the players Chelsea are looking at. But I thought what was really fascinating was talking about the players who Chelsea currently have. And I think one of the main things that I did like the idea of, in the idea of it being a free in possession, out of possession, moving back to a 4, but just kind of generally wanting to get both Malo Gusto and Reece James in the team, I think is a great idea. I really like the idea of having both of those players when they're both available. More so concern over Reece James, because Malo Gusto obviously was fit for a majority of last season, but was, I think, an integral player for Chelsea, and I wouldn't want to see his progression as a player stalled. So I think it'd be quite fascinating to see how those two players could work together. I think they could actually dovetail quite nicely, and in the sense that both of them could kind of cover. One of them could go forward, one of them could sit deeper. We know, Reece James, his ability on the ball, maybe wanting to build up from deep, but then also having the ability to run down that flank. And we know Malo Gusto, I think creatively, actually was something that surprised a lot of us last season, was how creatively involved he was, how many times he did create a goal for Chelsea. So there's that. And then also just obviously understanding he wants a flexible team and wants players who are going to be able to do different things across the season. I think whatever you think about Enzo Maresca's style of play, I just think in modern football, that's a very key thing to have. You need to have a flexible, mobile squad, a team that, in different ways, on different occasions, are going to have to do different things. Now, I think the general principle of the way Maresca wants to set up and wants to get his team playing is very ball dominant. But I think in terms of maybe trying to counteract what he's going to face in the Premier League as a Chelsea coach compared to when he was at Leicester, was, a lot of low blocks, probably teams trying to counteract what he did at Leicester, trying to exploit some of the weaknesses they would have seen in that Leicester team last year. So, and Chelsea obviously having an extended calendar this year is obviously a big part of this, of wanting to bulk up the squad, which has been spoken a lot about by Matt Law. So some of the other players being linked is a left-footed defender with Bologna's Italy international Riccardo Calafiori. One option being considered, as Maresca obviously wants the defence can operate as a back 4 and a back 3. And we have already spoken about Nottingham Forest's Murillo is another player who has been linked via The Guardian, and he may well start with 3 central defenders. So a lot's being talked about with obviously the return of Wesley Fofana, Axel Disasi, Benoit Badiashile, Levi Colwill, and Tosin Adarabioyo. It is believed and has been said consistently now by Matt Law, unfortunately, Chelsea still seem hell-bent on selling Trevor Chalobah, which I will again say I think is a very stupid decision, but that's apparently the course Chelsea want to go down this summer. The other big thing to come out of this story that I think probably gained most reaction actually was, it is anticipated, and we'd kind of already been, in some ways you could have assumed it based on Maresca's style of play or just, things that had been hinted already. But it is anticipated that Robert Sanchez will start as Enzo Maresca's first choice goalkeeper at Chelsea. I think, again, this is a very self-defeating move. Unless Robert Sanchez can go 180 and can completely take away the errors that were there last season, prove to be really, really good with the ball at his feet, and proves to be, the very competent goalkeeper and very effective with the ball at his feet goalkeeper that at times we absolutely did see in glimmers last season at Chelsea, but also at Brighton, then this is a very dangerous move, I think, by Enzo Maresca. I think he is risking, just putting his team in a lot of danger, because I think, Robert Sanchez was not a good player for Chelsea last year. He being sold as this keeper who was really good with the ball at his feet, but compared to Georgia Petrovic, who, I was told wasn't good with the ball at his feet, there's no comparison between the two goalkeepers who put Chelsea in more danger with the ball at their feet, and it was not Petrovic. It was absolutely 100% Robert Sanchez. And actually, Chelsea got away with it more than they should have. I think there was only a couple of occasions where Chelsea a mistake actually led to a goal. I think we could have been punished a lot more last season. And also, there were other parts of Sanchez's game in terms of his positioning, his chemistry with the defence compared to Petrovic. So for me, I just, I do ponder if this is... I spoke about this yesterday with the striker situation. My kind of hope is for the rest of this window is that Sanchez will start in pre-season and Maresca may start to see that that isn't actually the smartest play for him, and Chelsea will maybe go in the market, or he'll just revert to what Pochettino eventually did in giving Georgia Petrovic that first choice spot, because I don't think it's a great decision. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic or unfair there by just looking at the way our two main goalkeepers performed last season and looking at... No one can seriously look me in the face and tell me they are comfortable with Robert Sanchez being our first choice goalkeeper. I don't care how amazing you think Maresca's style of play is. Robert Sanchez was given enough opportunity last year, and especially by the end when he was taken out and he was brought back for the FA Cup, it looked worse and worse every time. So I'm not confident with that. But the other thing is in terms of this chase for Riccardo Calafiori from Bologna, who's being talked about a lot. Obviously, he was involved with Italy at Euro 2024, had some impressive performances. Specifically, I think the Croatia game was one where people looked to him, where he played on the left side of a back three. And now Matt Law's talking about having a left-footed defender. Now, if we are to buy Calafiori or someone else who really actually is just playing as a left-back, and then in possession, he maybe moves into a free to cover if, say, Reece James or Malo Gusto on the other side wants to move forward. I have no real problem with that. But if we're specifically looking for a left-footed defender, I don't really see the point of it. This was not an issue. This was an issue we had several years ago where we actually didn't have many, if any, left-footed defenders. But obviously, since then, we have had the signings of Benoit Badiashile. We have Levi Colwill, who I think hopefully is going to play an even more integral role this season. We even know Marc Cucurella. Cucurella's summer is going to be an interesting one, because I think stylistically there's a lot that makes him kind of a natural fit for Enzo Maresca. There's another player obviously in the left back area we're going to speak of in terms of their future, but Matt Law's kind of hinted that, if there's a good offer that comes in post Euros, after a strong Euros, maybe Chelsea would look to sell Marc Cucurella, which then justifies of course going out and signing a left back. And of course Calafiori, although he has played more as a centre back, has played as a left back and very much could play in that role. So I'm not completely opposed to it, but it's one of those things where it's how he's used. I think we need to strengthen at left back. That's kind of my main concern. I personally, of course, in terms of numbers, you are looking to lose Trevor Chalobah, which again is just very silly to me. But if you are losing him, you probably want to replace him with someone. So in some sense, it could work out. It's between Chelsea and Arsenal. And obviously currently, right now, Arsenal do possess a stronger hand. They provide Champions League football. They probably provide another title challenge and a more settled system under Mikel Arteta. So we'll see how that shapes up. It's quite clear Chelsea are at the very least looking at this kind of profile this summer. And if there are any other names that you think Chelsea should be looking at, let me know in the comments below. And the other thing really to speak about is obviously Ben Chilwell. Again, not that much of a surprise. I think, Ben Chilwell obviously is a fullback that is very much one of kind of a more traditional sense, but, someone who wants to get down the flank, wants to be wide, wants to be high, doesn't, he's not an inverted kind of new style fullback who wants to move into central midfield and just, recycle possession. He is someone who wants to get up the pitch, and that is why I think Ben Chilwell at his best is such a threatening player. Now, I just personally think that you will lose something if you just overlook that from a fit Ben Chilwell. I know obviously his fitness, like Reece James, is massively up for debate, up for concern, obviously in terms of how fit we actually have Ben Chilwell for the majority of the season. But I think absolutely what Ben Chilwell still brings you is his ability to hurt opposition defences. I think there's been a number of times throughout the years when Ben Chilwell's had a good performance and Chelsea have won, you've seen his ability to really get forward, specifically as a wing back, and make penetrating runs out to in, and how difficult that is to defend against, and how that causes chaos in the opposing defence, how that probably opens up space for someone else, and how Chelsea really are able to break down at times low blocks. And I think that Chilwell, to just overlook that side of his game because you are so wedded to this idea that fullbacks have to move into central midfield, I don't know, I think it may be a little bit self-defeating. So I feel that Chilwell, because of his contract and because of his wages, is not going to move this summer. I'd actually be quite shocked. It's going to take something absolutely significant to come in. And it's not like Chilwell is off the back of an amazing season. Let's be fair. His stock is not where it was in the summer of 2021 following the Champions League final. Obviously he's had a lot of injuries since then. And I think that's the main thing that's obviously halted his progress and his standing, right? Why would a club invest a lot in a player who has suffered a lot of injury setbacks? So I think he'll stick around. It's just what role does he play under Enzo Maresca, and is whether when you play Ben Chilwell, will you give him that license to do what he does best, or do you see it as too much of a risk based on the way you're going to look and shape up? So there are a couple of players within the squad who I think Chilwell's probably the more obvious of these, who maybe doesn't fit into what Maresca does, but maybe at a top club you kind of have to be flexible and evolve what you're doing to kind of keep up and to be successful. So Ben Chilwell is another one that obviously has a major question mark over his head, but I cannot see him moving personally this summer. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But that is it for today. We believe, and Matt Lord did confirm this and others have as well, Chelsea are back in training tomorrow. There's been pictures of players returning to Cobham like Tosin and Chilwell and Dewsbury, who are obviously now at Cobham. But I believe tomorrow is their first official training session, or at least this is where it officially starts. So really, we should be hearing from Enzo Maresca very soon. I'd like to see an interview with him. I'd like to see that press conference so we can start to get used and hear about Enzo Maresca, what he thinks about Chelsea. So hopefully we'll get that sooner rather than later. Let me know your thoughts on everything we discussed today. Follow me across socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.